So she's a sought after voice on why most AI initiatives fail and what actually works, grounded in systems thinking, human-centered design, and measurable business outcomes. That's a little about Jessica. We're happy to have her here today. I realized I didn't introduce myself. My name is Naakoko Ado. I co-lead WAI Tutorials with Huma and now Anguta. So I'll hand over to Jessica without taking any more time. I'll come up towards the end of the session. So if you have any questions during the course of the presentation, you could drop your question in the chat. I don't know how Jessica would like to do it, whether she like to take questions during the session, but you are free to leave your questions in the chat, and then after that we'll just go through them and then we'll take the feedback. Thanks again. Over to you, Jessica.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me see if I can share my screen now. Is that good for everybody?
Yeah, I can see you clearly.
Yes, thank you very much. I think we can start, and questions probably might be easier for me at the end, if that's okay.
Okay.
Just because so I can go with the flow. All right. All right. So is your organization AI enabled or AI native? Do you know the difference in your own operating model? Most organizations can't answer this question, and that's exactly why they're stuck in pilot purgatory. So my name is Jessica Minghinelli, and today I'm going to show you how to close that gap. So you can call me Jess. I have 15 years of experience in large tech enterprises like Xerox, Google, Salesforce. I'm a director of strategy, operational excellence, and AI operational transformation. In essence, I build operating systems at the intersection of strategy, organizational design, AI, and the human in the middle. So you can follow me on LinkedIn and you can subscribe to my newsletter as well. So you will leave this webinar with the following. First, a clear diagnosis of the problem, why AI initiatives stall. And spoiler, it's not the technology. The framework, the 5-stage operating model for closing the pilot to production gap, why it works, the 3 outcomes that separate AI native from AI enabled, and then a leadership imperative on why responsible AI scaling requires protecting human capability. And lastly, next steps. 3 questions that you can take back to your organization on Monday. Let's start with the problem. Rand Corporation research found that 80% of AI projects fail, twice the rate of traditional IT projects. And if I think about myself, I personally used to be very proud of the efficiency gain I had implemented. I freed up 8.5 full-time equivalents. I unlocked 4,000 hours of annual sales capacity, optimized headcount by 18%. As an operational excellence professional, I used to view AI as the ultimate process optimization tool, a way to automate pretty much anything. But I was wrong. Not about the value of automation. Don't get me wrong, the efficiency gains are real, but I was missing the bigger opportunity, the shift from AI enhanced to AI native. So the real question to ask is, what can we achieve with AI that was previously not possible? So this is the shift that has led me to develop my 5-stage framework. So we said this before, the solution isn't more technology, the real opportunity is in the operating model. So what even is an operating model? Let's start there. An operating model defines the capabilities, the processes, the roles and responsibilities, the technology, and the structure an organization needs to have to deliver value to its customers. What changes with AI is that for the first time, the technology has capability and judgment. It doesn't just execute, it doesn't just enable the work. So that changes everything. AI enabled, AI remains a tool in the operating model. It streamlines the work. In an AI native model, AI shifts to being a contributor. And so there is a presence of AI in all of the different dimensions of that operating model. So that changes everything. And it also changes how you organize the people around it. So this is the shift that is the premise to my 5-stage AI native operating model framework. So let's take a look at it. Here are the 5 stages. We're going to go over all of them one by one, and we're also going to use one example to illustrate each step. It starts with stage 1, foundations first. Then 2, find the leverage. 3, design for humans. 4, divide intelligently. And lastly, 5, orchestrate seamlessly. Stage 1, foundation first, is where most organizations trip up even before they've started. They get excited about AI, and rightly so. They identify a use case, they invest in a tool, they run a pilot, and the pilot works, it genuinely does, so they try to scale it, and that's when everything falls apart. And that's because AI doesn't fix what's broken. It compounds dysfunction. If your data is inconsistent across systems, AI will make decisions at scale based on that inconsistency. If your processes are undocumented, if they vary by team or region, AI will encode that variation and industrialize it. So you won't have fixed the problem, you'll have automated. A common failure mode, think about this, a service agent that can draft responses but cannot reliably pull account history from the CRM system or an order status from the ERP system. So that creates partial answers, slower resolutions, human rework. And that's exactly the kind of scale problems fragmented foundations produce. So before you can talk about what AI can do, you need to honestly ask yourself these 3 questions. Do you have a single source of truth for master data? Are your processes documented and consistently executed? Can you trace a single transaction end-to-end across systems without manual intervention? If you answer no or it depends, that is not a blocker, but you are not ready for AI native solutions. That's your starting point. And this work, it's not unglamorous, it's foundational. The organizations that get it right are the ones who scale AI faster. So now you've done the foundation work. After that, there's a question that gets asked almost all of the time. How do you know when the AI is good enough to deploy? How do you know what good enough is? The default assumption in most organizations is that AI needs to be as accurate as humans or better. And it sounds reasonable, but it's actually the wrong benchmark in most cases. And that's because even after you've documented your processes and these are consistently executed, it's still human processing. So it's not perfect. It has processing errors, it has blind spots, it has fatigue. So the real question to ask is, what level of accuracy is good enough given the actual consequences of being wrong? So let me give you a framework for this. It's a small framework within a framework. You need to start by assessing the current state. What does good look like today? But that's the honest current state, not the theoretical process. What's the real error rate today? What are the real consequences when things go wrong? When you've done that, you need to define your trade-off criteria. So what matters most in the particular context, given the consequences of errors? Is it speed? Is it accuracy? Is it cost? Risk? You need to have a prioritization for what matters most. Once you've got that, then you can set explicit thresholds. And you have to do that in writing. That has to be an agreed standard. At what accuracy level does AI become worth deploying? And this is a governance moment that most organizations skip, and then they have to pay the consequence of it later. The last phase, it's monitor and adjust. You define up front what would trigger a threshold review. Is it a system drift? Is it a business context? And it stays on as a living standard. So we'll see this in practice. So we're introducing our example for the day. Partner external attribution. Imagine a large organization, a technology company or a professional services firm where sales teams regularly work with external partners to win business. That could be a consultant that helps land a deal, an agency that brings a client to the table. And when that happens, the partner needs to be documented in the system so that they can be paid a reward for their share of the revenue. And the salesperson is responsible for documenting the partner. This organization also has a correction process in place in case the partner isn't attributed correctly or it isn't attributed before the deal closes. So they want to understand what good looks like, and they start with assessing the current state, and they find the following. 37% of partner attribution happens after the deal has already closed through the correction process. And the consequences of the mistake is that the partner doesn't get paid on time or doesn't get paid at all. Next, they define their trade-off criteria as follows. Scalability over velocity, over consistency, over accuracy, and over cost. So scalability is the one thing that matters the most. And that helps them set explicit thresholds. They're willing to accept an increase of 5% in error rate with 95% attribution before deal closure. So now you have a very clear definition of what good enough is and when it is worth deploying AI. In the monitor and adjust, they have, for example, decided upfront that any increase in double payments is a rollback trigger. So good enough is not a low bar. It's the right bar defined by what actually matters for the business. All right, so we get to stage 2. Your foundations are solid. You've done the hard infrastructure work. You've defined what good enough looks like. Now comes the question that everyone wants to get to first. Where do we actually use AI? And this is where I want to challenge a reflex that I see in many organizations. You have to find the leverage. The instinct is to ask, where can we use AI? And this is where teams and companies and leadership, they come together, they look at a list of use cases, maybe they've seen competitor announcements, and the conversation becomes around which technology to apply where. It feels strategic, but it's not, because the question starts with the technology, not the problem. And when you start with the tool, you may end up automating something that wasn't worth automating in the first place. There is a single question that reframes everything. Where is human effort highest cost and lowest value? This is about mapping the value chain and identifying what I call high impact AI targets and low impact AI targets. So high impact AI targets are the ones that will get you to the fastest path to measurable return on investment and the strongest case for scaling. And these are things like revenue friction points, where our customer deals stalling or deading, where our customer churning, compliance risk exposure, where human errors create liability, or even scalability bottleneck, where growth requires linear headcount increase, or expertise scarcity, where institutional knowledge creates a single point of failure. And then there are low impact AI targets. and they are as important to document as the high impact ones. These include things like anything that is already good enough, where adequate outcomes don't justify the transformation cost, or one-off exceptions, edge cases that have no repeatable pattern for AI to learn from, or even tasks that humans do quickly and enjoy, because automating that destroys morale without meaningful gain. It's as important to document the high impact targets as well as the low impact targets, because companies normally do not target the wrong things. They just don't target the ones with the best ROI. If you're unsure if a target is high impact or not, you can ask, if we automate this perfectly and it works exactly as intended, what actually changes for the business? If you can't answer this in one sentence and a measurable business outcome, it's probably not a high impact target. So the organizations that scale AI successfully are not the ones that find the most use cases. They're the ones that find the right ones. So let's see this stage in practice, again with our external partner attribution. The organization mapped the value chain and identified a high impact target in timely partner attribution. And this is because every misattributed deal results in a revenue leakage, a partner that doesn't get paid, and so that damages trust and future collaboration. Even a leadership blind spot on revenue driven by partners, and also that complex correction ticket process. They also identify a low impact AI target in the automation of the correction process approval. So it would gain efficiency, but it would only make it easier to manage the mistakes. So the real target to address is the timely partner attribution. All right, so now we know where to point AI to, but knowing the right target is only half the challenge. The other half is designing the solution so that the people who need to use it actually use it. And so it brings us to stage 3, design for humans. And this is the stage that separates AI projects that get adopted from the ones that don't survive. And in my experience, a lot of organizations, even the technically sophisticated ones, make mistakes in this stage. They build something technically impressive that isn't used, or it gets used a little bit and then gets abandoned. Okay, let's see how we design for humans. The best AI solutions don't even feel like technology. They feel like the friction disappearing. They dissolve into the user experience. They're built from actual behavioral patterns and pain points, not technological capability. And that's your design principle for this entire stage. Think about, do you know the feeling when, for example, you're trying to get something done and you have to enter and re-enter the same information or repeat it from stakeholder to stakeholder? Or when someone escalates a decision, not because it needs senior judgment, but because the system didn't give them enough confidence for them to make the decision themselves. That is user journey friction, and you want to aim to dissolve that friction. So how do you design for that? You map the actual user journey. You understand how the user behaves along that journey, not the documented process, again, the actual one. And then you look for specific signals that I call the AI insertion points. These are the moments where AI, built in from the start, dissolves the friction rather than adding to it. And so these are things like workarounds, waiting, decisions made with incomplete data, duplicate effort, sense-making gaps, confidence escalations. Let's get back to output before we get to the example. A little quote from MIT Sloan Research. They found that employee resistance to adopting AI drops from 68 to 23% when AI is built into workflows rather than added alongside them. And that is because they stopped experiencing it as a change altogether. Okay, now we get to the example. Same example. The organization maps the user journey and analyzes the behavioral patterns, the pain points, and they realize the following. Partner attribution is manual. It's a minor admin step inside a very complex deal lifecycle. It's dependent solely on the salesperson, so that's a single point of failure. And they have to remember to log the partner's involvement at the right time and in the right system. And the salesperson doesn't forget that out of carelessness. That is because the deal lifecycle is complex and they're focused on closing the deal. So that's the AI insertion point. During the active collaboration, while the partner's footprint is still active in the data. Okay, so now we've got our AI and impact target. We're addressing, we've mapped the user journey, identified the signals necessary to design for humans. And this is where we now divide the work intelligently between AI and humans as we redesign this workflow. And that all starts with capability mapping. AI should handle what humans can't, and humans should handle what AI can't. So AI should own processing millions of data points simultaneously, maintaining perfect consistency, operating 24/7, and so on. Humans should navigate ambiguity, build trust, relationship, apply contextual judgment, innovate. If you're unsure, you can ask yourself, is this intelligence work or judgment work? Intelligence work is defined, repeatable, rule-based. And automating it fully is the right call because it frees up genuine human capacity. Judgment work is contextual, ambiguous, and high stakes. So the right output depends on experience, context recognition, and the kind of tacit knowledge that only develops through practice. So AI should augment this work, not replace it. So the human should stay in the loop. I've used the AI buzzword, human in the loop. What does that even mean? Well, I have identified 4 archetypes of human in the loop, human AI collaboration. And this is based on accountability and flow and the relationship between the human and the digital worker. So archetype 1 is what I call the final arbiter. In this model, AI does 90% of the work, the human does 10% of the work. So the AI is like a high-speed junior associate that produces a near complete draft, and then the human provides the context, the empathy, and the legal liability. So this archetype is best for high stakes situations where accountability matters. So the winning outcome is AI efficiency plus human judgment. You can also think of this as an editor-in-chief kind of role rather than being the writer or the analyst. The second archetype is what I call the architect, and it's the most agentic version of all because it's 100% AI execution. So the human doesn't even look at the work, they look at the engine that does the work. So this archetype is best for high volume, standardized, repeatable work. So the human defines the logic and the AI executes at scale. And the competitive advantage here is speed. You can also think of this as a product manager of digital workforce. Then archetype 3 is what I call the guardian. This is also for high volume, low stake tasks that will, however, occasionally have an edge case that carries real risk. So the AI is fully autonomous until it hits a confidence score below a certain threshold, and then the human steps in. And then the last archetype is what I call the collaborative peer. And this is where AI is not an executor, it is a thought partner. And this is best for complex adaptive work that needs challenged decisions. All right, let's take this stage through our example. So this is a summary of where we were with the partner external attribution case. We found the leverage, the AI high impact target as timely partner revenue attribution. Design for Yuma identified the AI insertion point as the salesperson forgetting to log the partner. And as we redefine this workflow, stage 4, divide intelligently, tells us exactly how the human and the AI will share the work. This is a guardian archetype model. The AI agent scans collaboration data, detects partner involvement early, attributes the partner automatically when the confidence is high enough. And the salesperson is prompted when AI can't reach that accuracy threshold. And this is where also stage 1 loops back in because, and as you know, you need to define what good enough looks like before you deploy. In this scenario, the trade-off decision was scalability over accuracy. So the volume of correctly attributed deals mattered more than perfect accuracy. And so the organization decided that getting attribution right on 95% of the deals automatically before closure and catching the rest with a human prompt was worth the increase in error rate because it meant that the correction process ticket dropped significantly. So this is what redesigning AI native workflows looks like in practice. But the work is not done. So we've built beautiful foundations, we found the leverage, we designed for humans, we divided the work intelligently between people and AI. We created an individually successful AI solution. Now we have to orchestrate it seamlessly. And that takes us to our final stage, orchestrate seamlessly. So a lot of organizations do stages 1 to 4 reasonably well. They create individually successful solutions across multiple functions. And on paper, it looks like transformation. The ROI numbers per project don't look bad. But what's often missing is the integration between those solutions, other solutions, and other capabilities. So on the ground, the people in the middle are left performing that integration between islands of intelligence manually. So collectively, this creates new silos. And the context is lost, and the cognitive load on the people doing this actually accumulates. So the answer to this is orchestration, orchestrated intelligence. And it's fundamentally a service design question. Orchestrated intelligence is difficult because it creates a coherent experience. The AI will act as a connective tissue, not just a collection of point solutions. The customer, the employee, the partner, they all experience one coherent service. So the question to ask to achieve this is, what does the complete experience look like end to end for the person doing the work? For the customer being served, for the partner on the other side of the transaction. And then you can design the AI layer that serves that complete journey. In our partner attribution example, we created an island of intelligence, an individual solution that works successfully in isolation. And so now we need to ensure it's orchestrated intelligently. Let's take a look at it. So seamless orchestration isn't looking at the partner attribution in isolation. It has to integrate with the relevant journeys or end-to-end life cycles, if you will. And there's 3 main ones. There is a sales deal life cycle, so the salesperson journey. Then there is a partner engagement life cycle, the partner journey. And then there's even a finance life cycle because we're talking about a payout to a partner. Orchestrated intelligence looks like a salesperson that experiences one coherent deal life cycle. The partner attribution runs in the background. It's harmonized with other deal agents already operating and not competing with them for attention, for example. And then when the partner attribution agent acts, the cascade triggers automatically. The partner portal is updated, the reward platform is notified, finance is informed, and the reward process is completed. So the partner sees the deal in real time, the reward processes automatically without a correction request. And so that's a better experience. The salesperson never logged the partner never chased the payment, finance never received a correction ticket. Those are not 3 or 5 different solutions. It's one orchestrated system serving 3 different people's journeys simultaneously. There's 5 stages, one complete operating model, and when it's applied, built for humans and designed to compound, the outcomes are real. Which takes me to, let's see why this framework works. AI native operating models allow you not just to optimize the business that you currently have, but to unlock the one that you couldn't have before. These are the 3 outcomes that allow you to know if your model is working. The first is measurable business outcomes, not technology metrics. And then cognitive friction disappears. So the users don't learn a new tool, they just experience a new workflow. And this also allows for roles to naturally evolve towards higher value archetypes, because the model was designed that way from the start. Okay. We're almost nearing to the end, but there's something else I want to say to you today. The AI native operating model can drive all the 3 outcomes we just described, but it will still fail on responsible AI if leadership doesn't actively protect human capability development. Let me show you why. You may have heard about the productivity paradox. AI promised to make everyone more productive, but the reality is that people are reporting being busier, even if not more overwhelmed than they were before. These are tools that are faster, smarter, and more capable than anything we've had before. But they've created new problems that are quietly consuming the capacity we thought we were freeing up. There's 3 problems. The first one I call the managerial tax. AI is turning knowledge workers into supervisors. And the cognitive work increases when you're supervising, when the output of AI needs checking, validating, correcting all the time. So this is shifting people from focused creation to hypervigilance. And then there's the split attention effect, and that happens when workers have to integrate data from multiple tabs, sidebars, windows, because every switch carries a resumption cost. The reality is that the brain doesn't just pause and restart, it has to rebuild the mental model it was working with before the interruption. So these 2 problems can be mitigated or fixed with better design, but the last one, the de-skilling trap, is actually structural. When AI handles the drafting, the analysis, the initial diagnosis, the first pass decision, all of the tasks that used to be how humans built their domain expertise, the human that interact with the AI's output will progressively have less experience with the underlying work. They can still evaluate the output and approve or reject, but they will gradually and invisibly lose the cognitive schema that makes that evaluation meaningful. So the fix for this is to liberate schema maintenance, designing workflows that keep humans practicing the underlying cognitive work, even when the AI is handling the execution. And it may look less efficient in the short term, but it will be significantly more resilient in the long term. All right, as promised, I'm going to leave you with 3 questions that you can take back to your organization this week or on Monday next week or whenever you want. Do you have the foundations to build on? If not, that's not a blocker, it's your starting point. Have you defined good enough in writing? This is about decision rigor. If not, you don't have a deployment decision yet. Does every person who is working alongside an AI system know which archetype they are? If not, they're probably trying to be all 4 at once, and that's managerial tasks at scale. So thank you very much. If you want, you can follow me on LinkedIn, sign up for my newsletter, and now let's open up to questions.
Thanks very much, Jessica. I think that your takeaway questions were very thought-provoking, especially the question 2. I mean, I have questions, but I'll open the floor for questions.
You can give it a minute so people can think them through.
Okay. No problem. Feel free to leave your question in the chat if you wouldn't want to talk about it.
I was just thinking, hi, this is Catherine. I was wondering, it's great to have an example. Would you have any other example of something that worked well with AI?
In what sense that worked well with AI? Like a newly designed, yeah. Sorry, just thinking a little bit because I don't want to share things that can't be shared publicly. Yes. So an example of something that worked well is actually the first agent that the group I was working with deployed. Let's say that the equivalent would be an agent that does an access or password reset automatically, or an extension of a, I don't know, subscription, for example. So the steering committee I was part of identified this as a one of those, let's say, situations where the human effort was highest cost and lowest value. And that so was a high impact AI target in the sense that processing these requests could take days. It would require checking and touching several different systems before the request could be completed. And it was delaying valuable work on the requester side. So it was potentially delaying or creating dissatisfaction or delaying revenue or things of that nature. And so the agent was launched. It was able to automate. It was 24/7 operating. The agent was able to operate across the different systems and even validate and checks different things in different systems simultaneously, something that a human can't do. And then it was operating 24/7. So what would take days to process, once the agent was live, only took a few minutes. It was a guardian type of archetype because even in this case, there was a confidence score that had been established where if the agent couldn't complete the work, it would log a ticket for humans to review. So that project achieved a 46% adoption in 5 months and a 98% agent resolution rate in those 5 months. So that was quite impressive also because it was early on in the game of agentic AI. I don't know if that answered your question fully, because I don't want to share too many details publicly.
And understood, Laura. Thank you. It's really helpful to see real world example.
Thank you.
Hi, Jessica, Ashley here. I really enjoyed your presentation. Thank you so much for that. I just have a question about your experience of resistance in relation to implementation, and maybe if there's a couple of examples of, how maybe you've overcome that resistance or what that looked like in organizations.
Yeah, and of course, we are humans, and so resistance is part of it, and so it has to be addressed. It's not just one thing. There's different things that an organization needs to do when it comes to that resistance. The first thing is understanding where it comes from, because if you don't understand where it comes from, then it's difficult to address. And I can quite easily say here that a lot of the resistance comes from the fear of being replaced by AI. And so designing AI native solutions is a good way to remove part of the friction and just change the experience for employees, for example, but it isn't all. It also has to come with the right strategy behind it and the right communication from leadership, for example. And the communication from leadership has to address the root cause of that resistance. And so, for instance, what I would suggest and what I've seen work the best is being able to say, if we are redesigning this workflow where AI will take on 90% of the work, this is what's going to happen to the humans that are currently, delivering that kind of work. And being able to reallocate resources and being clear that that is the plan is going to make the people feel less resistant to adopting the solution or even contributing to the solution being implemented and being successful.
That's great. Thanks so much for that.
All right. Thanks for your questions and thanks for engaging with Jessica. And thanks, Jessica, for such a great presentation. In the meantime, not to cut anyone off, QT has a hand up, but I've left a feedback form in the chat. Please let us know what you think about the session. It's a great way for us to improve. So I appreciate your feedback. Okay, QT.
Thank you for the Jessica. My question was regarding the review part. So if I understand correctly, after in any workflow, after AI agent has completed the task, the human reviews it and assigns a confidence score. Am I correct?
No, not in every transaction. So these are criteria that are defined upfront. And then the workflow is designed so that the agent will operate. And if it hits that confidence, if it doesn't reach that confidence threshold, then the agent is designed to look in the human. So the human in that case just takes it from there in the workflow. Now, that said, when you have agents, you also have to monitor what they do and whether they do it correctly. So there will always be an agent manager role, for example, that reviews even feedback scores, right? So when the agent is operating, like a satisfaction score, is the correct output being produced? Was the issue resolved? Yes or no? Are the users satisfied? And then there's feedback loops to make sure that the agent is actually delivering. But when it comes to the workflow itself, it's not a situation where a human is reviewing every output, every individual output, because that is not something that is humanly possible at the scale of AI. And so you will have workflows where there is a human reviewing and validating only if it makes sense for that to be. So if there's things like, there's a liability element where it is important to have a human review before the workflow is completed. But for anything that is not high risk, the agent will operate autonomously. But then, it's really like managing digital workers. It's like there is a manager that doesn't monitor every single transaction their people are working on, but overall there is a way to monitor that the performance is achieved and find where things aren't correctly working and then addressing the gaps.
Okay, thanks.
I think there's a hand up. I can't read that name. Sorry, it's very small for me at the moment.
Okay, you are unmuted. Okay, have unmuted. Yeah,
Hey, Jessica.
Hi.
Shivani this side from India. Thank you for this lovely session. So, I am actually working on one of the agentic AI project, and while you were speaking, I could relate, and there was food for thought for a lot of things that I've been going through recently. So my question is around how do we navigate discussion around what is a good enough level of accuracy with stakeholders. So for instance, in our project, we have currently gone live in the production stage. So while in the UAT stage, we discovered there were multiple edge cases. So it was decided with the business that for those cases, and also went through your bio. So this project is also the UI is the Salesforce UI. So for multiple cases, it was decided during the UAT cycle that it would result into a manual flow. Basically, it is a case around reviewing the member profile update cases. So just wanted to understand that now that we are live. So for instance, if I take 10 cases right now, in let's say 3 to 4 cases, the AI agent is able to complete the entire flow and do what it is desired to do. And let's say in 3 to 4 cases, it is resulting into a manual flow. So now the business, when we speak to business now, when they come up with this ideology that for me success would be just the 3 to 4 cases where the AI agent is actually able to deliver, and not where it is triggering a manual flow. However, you understand that for some edge cases it was discovered. So just wanted to understand how do we navigate the discussions where we say that okay, AI is doing what it is expected to do, and while yeah.
So I have a question here. Was that decided upfront? So that's where the deciding what the good enough is very important, because it keeps also stakeholder aligned, right? So I would ask you, are those, I think you said 2 to 3 that are, maybe basically sent to a manual flow. Was already, was decided before that, okay, the AI will operate autonomously on standard, and then there's a 10%, 5% that will route to humans? Because if what you have now in production is in line with what was decided up front, then I don't think that there's a review threshold trigger at this point without any further modification in the context, because the AI would be delivering exactly what was agreed. But if that's not in line with what was decided before, then it might be a case of understanding why you have more edge cases than initially anticipating and then correcting. But if it's the same that was, agreed beforehand, then I think there's a case of asking the stakeholders, how do you see that changing if the conditions haven't changed?
Absolutely. So, yes, Jessica. So I would say, for the manual flows that have been triggering, most of them, almost 90% of them have been the cases which have been documented in the testing as well, that, they will trigger into a manual flow. However, with the inherent nature of AI, there are 1-2 cases which may be due to database fetching or something are resulting into a manual flow. So we are considering them as errors. But I think that's a good starting point. Like you said, that, it's always good to have that threshold percentage, or maybe success metric, because this was the first time that I was also working on an AI project. But thanks for the learning. Thank you so much for this session.
Thanks.
All right.
Very
Thanks
good.
for your question too.
Sorry, Na. I didn't mean to speak over you there.
No, you're okay.
We just wanted to make sure, Jess, we have a question in the chat, and if I may, I'm just going to read it out loud so that everyone can hear it. Many organizations invest heavily in AI, but struggle to see measurable productivity gains. The productivity paradox, you called it out yourself, right?
Mhm.
In your 5-stage model, at which stage does this paradox typically emerge most strongly, and what specific changes are needed to actually unlock real productivity gains?
Ooh, there's a lot in this question
There's a lot
alone.
to unpack.
And there's a lot also because there's different types of AI, right? And so AI is part of our reality, and it's not just like within a business context in the sense of a business process. Let's put it this way. Now we have AI on our meeting tools, and then we have it in email, and then we have it in Slack, and so on. And so actually that productivity paradox is already there from the start. Any type of AI that gets added into a business organization will immediately produce a situation where the cognitive load increases. Because if you think about it, yes, you've got meeting notes that get captured automatically, but no one's sending them out as they are. They'll have to download them, review them, fix them a little bit, and then ship them off, and maybe copy and paste and switch context, and so on and so forth. So that happens from the very beginning. Even when you're just working with your ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it is, I mean, if anyone is doing that, just copying and pasting, that's also not good for other reasons. And so there is that cognitive load of having to review. So at what stage? It's like anytime there's any kind of AI that is live in a system, that's when it starts. And so what becomes even more important when a company is implementing their AI strategies, even, nail down what tools you want to use. And a better experience is the one where there's one unique layer where you don't have to switch context. Like, for example, a simple example would be if you have Gmail, then you've got Gemini, and you've got the same on your Gmail, on your documents, on your Google Meets, and so on. And because if you start having all of the different ones, then you've got that split attention effect. When it comes to embedding AI in business workflows, the moment they run alongside rather than being part of the experience, that's when that productivity paradox comes out. It's the context switch, and some of it cannot be eliminated altogether. It's just a new reality. But some of it can be mitigated by having better strategies in place and better design, service design.
Thank you for answering that, Jessica.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know we're at time. Just asking everybody, if
Yeah.
anyone wants to reach out to me with a question, just feel free to do that on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think she's left her barcode there, so if you could please. I think that's for LinkedIn, is it, Jessica? The barcode. Is
The
it for
barcode,
LinkedIn?
yes. Let me.
Okay.
Am I not still sharing my screen?
You
Yes.
are. I'm
Oh,
just letting
sorry.
them know. No
Yes,
problem.
that's for LinkedIn.
Okay. Well, I'll need to wrap up the session now, but thanks everyone. We're happy to have you, Jessica. Thanks for all the insights. I appreciate your engagement, your questions, everything. If you could please leave the feedback, I have the form still there. If you could please leave a feedback, that would be truly helpful. So we hope to see you in the next session, which is on the 13th of May. If you haven't registered already, please do so, and we'll see you next week. Enjoy the rest of your evening, everyone. Bye. Oh, sorry. Recording will be up on our YouTube channels and the slides as well. Okay. That's it. Bye,
Great.
everyone. Bye.
Thank